What is up, beautiful soul? My name is CARLEENA La Curandera, and I am a spiritual coach empowering women to become cosmic creatrixes in their life, to really go out and birth this new 5D earth that we are seeing awakening here on the planet. I am also the author of the upcoming book, The AKASHIC Alchemist, a cyclical guide to remembering your soul's ancient wisdom. And today I'm so excited to share a snippet of the teachings that will be in my upcoming book, because I find that it's so important to teach, especially for those of us living in the Western world right now in 2022. So these teachings that I'm about to share, I really want to honor and celebrate the lineage of where this comes from. There's a lot of inspiration in today's video from 5-element theory, as well as Ayurveda and indigenous cultures from all over the world, including South America and Africa. So, you know, what I'm talking about today is going to be all about embodying the energy of spring. And the energy of spring is a beautiful archetypal point in time where we can start to get organized and start to blossom, come out of our shells, and gift the world with whatever it is that we're wanting to gift. And spring is really this preparation, this organizational time period. It's where we set intentions and we start to gather momentum and move into action. So let me start by sharing in 5-element theory, which comes from East Asia, specifically China, Korea, Japan. These teachings really show us that in spring, we have this energy that is subconsciously telling us to get up, get moving, get the fuck after it, right? And I know I have felt this, like on that first spring day, it's like, I've got to go out in my garden and I want to call a friend and I want to go for a walk and I want to start all these projects that I have put down in the past and didn't have the energy for in the winter. And so spring subconsciously is telling us like, hey, all the plants are blooming, all the flowers are blooming, you should be too. And if our internal energy isn't matching the season that we're in, based on where you're at in the world, it can create this internal struggle or this subconscious feeling of I'm not doing enough, or I'm doing this wrong, or I don't have this all figured out. So the reason why it's helpful to return to cyclical living is really to return to balance and work with the energies of Mother Earth, to work with the flow of spring when Mother Nature is in spring, if we get spring, depending on where we live in the world. So I live in New Jersey. We, over the years, have gotten much less spring time as global warming really ramps up now that we're in the thick of it. And growing up though as a kid, having like the full season of spring, we just see all this beautiful life come back to us. And you know, being in New Jersey in spring, we have all these beautiful different flowering plants and flowers. We don't call it the Garden State for nothing. There is so much diversity with florals and so many trees that bloom around here. So spring is such a beautiful time. It's like everything's blossoming and coming to full bloom. And really metaphorically, Mother Nature is teaching us something. I believe that we come to planet Earth to learn from Mother Earth, the spirit, the soul of Mother Earth. She's our teacher here. Our soul could have chosen to incarnate on plenty of different planets, but we chose here. So from my perspective, Mother Earth is our greatest teacher. She's our great mother. And so we can turn to 5-element theory and turn to just looking at the season of spring and unpacking what she's teaching us through the symbolism of spring. So as I mentioned, spring is about blossoming. So when I work with my mentees, the people that I coach, my clients, when we're looking at our archetypal inner spring, we're blossoming. We're learning how to blossom and come out of our shell. And this process can bring up a lot for us. So in traditional East Asian medicine and 5-element theory, every season, every archetypal season of, let's say, spring, for example, right now, has a corresponding element, which is wood, which I'll talk about in a moment. And then not just a corresponding element, but a corresponding emotion. So when we know what the emotion is, if we see it showing up in our lives, we know that we're out of balance somewhere. And it's an invitation to explore where we're out of balance and to get information to spiritually grow and evolve and emotionally grow and evolve. So with spring, our archetypal element is going to be wood. And when we think of wood, it's like that metaphorical oak tree that's growing between the cracks in the concrete. It doesn't see life as an obstacle. It can adapt and move around any obstacles, including concrete, to still blossom and bloom. So wood is an upward energy. It's like, I'm going to go upwards and, expand and blossom and become something in the future. Spring isn't about becoming, it's about the journey of navigating the cracks in the concrete to get out into the light. So wood teaches us to grow upwards, to start to stand taller in our dreams and in what we're setting out to do. And it's also resiliency. Wood is extremely resilient. It is flexible, it can bend, but it doesn't break, right? Healthy wood is nourished with water. And so if you take a healthy tree branch, it's not just going to snap in your hands, it's resilient, it's pliable. So in our inner spring, spring is teaching us to build this resiliency. And not only resiliency, but to gain momentum and start to grow like the ivy that just all of a sudden, like you wake up one spring day and it's just everywhere. Or the flowers that just all of a sudden have just bloomed. It's like everything just is growing. There's growth, there's movement, there's action happening. So spring is going to subconsciously teach us, hey, it's time to get into action, like time to get moving. And if we don't get moving, or if we're overwhelmed by getting moving, or if we're feeling like we're not worthy enough to get moving, whatever it might be, if there's something that blocks that subconscious pull to grow upwards, to move into action, to spring up and to blossom, the corresponding emotion that we're going to feel is anger. And anger is really healthy. Anger teaches us that there's something happening in my life that I don't agree with. There's something that's happening that I'm not a yes for. And this energy is important. We need anger. Anger is what creates change. It's the catalyst behind change. So people who have a lot of strong wood constitution, a lot of internal spring energy, they tend to feel anger pretty strongly. And each of us have our own constitutional element that we feel show up for us a lot in our lives. I'll post more videos on all 5 of the constitutional elements, but today we're just talking about wood and spring. So people who have a strong spring constitution, a strong wood constitution, they're the change makers. They're the people who are advocates. They are getting out there and saying, fuck this, I don't agree with what's happening. And not only that, but I'm going to set intentions to create change. So anger really helps us rebel against toxic dominant culture. It helps us rebel against the structures in our life that no longer serve us. And sometimes we can use that energy of anger and misdirect it in a way that doesn't serve us. So when we become aware of this, we can start to see the patterns of our lives and see the pattern of how anger shows up for us, so that in the future, the next time it comes around, because spring is a season for a reason, it's going to come back, so we can practice this again. The next time anger comes around and I'm aware of it, I'll have some healthy tools to allow the energy to move through me like a breeze without misdirecting it. So in 5-element theory, any energy, any emotion, energy in motion, any energy that moves through us can be misdirected. And not in a good or wrong or bad or good way, like it's not making it right or wrong. It's just like, is that effective to your growth? Is it supporting your longevity? Is it supporting the flow of life force in your body? If not, then it's misaligned. It's flowing to a source that's not serving you. So anytime we have an emotion that's moving through us, it could either be moving in a way that's really balanced and conducive to healing and supportive to our growth, or it could be a more yin reaction, which means inward. Yin is more inward and like subconsciously centered on like us as our ego. Or it could be more yang expressed or reacted to, so more external. It's more defensive of like the world's the problem. So I'll give you an embodied example of this. If I experience a situation that brings up the energy of anger within me, For example, I was recording a video months ago and I was making like an IG reel and I was only editing it on IG and it kept like bugging out on me and I spent hours and I was getting so frustrated. And what my vision wasn't happening. It's like, I'm not liking what's happening and I'm spending all this time and all this energy because I want it to be good. I have this vision and it's not working out. I started to blame Instagram of like this piece of shit app. It's not working. It's not doing what I want it to do. And started to really project this external defensive mechanism that why I'm angry is because of the app and it not doing what I want it to do. So very external. Instagram's the problem. IG's the problem. What 5-element theory has taught me is to zoom out a little bit. So that's my initial reaction. The yang defensive blame game is like the yang expression of anger. We blame the world or other people or technology, whatever it might be. And that's an invitation for me when I see myself getting really angry at something like an IG reel not working out the way I wanted it to. I really sat with that, like, why is this bothering me so much? And the reason why was because I felt like I had to settle for something that was less than perfect. I felt like I had this vision in my head and I couldn't execute it. And how are people going to perceive me if it's not the way that I originally planned? And so if I had just left it at blaming it on IG and their real technology, I would have missed the gold in that moment to see that there's a perfectionist in me that is yearning for perfection and ultimately consistently setting high standards, high expectations on myself, only to feel let down. So this was a really beautiful moment of exploration, emotionally, spiritually for me. And that's just a silly example with like IG reels. Like, to be honest, I get angry. I'm part wood constitution, so I feel anger probably the most on its like spectrum in my life. And if I just chalked it up to blame it on other people like I did in my life, I spent many years blaming, I disempower myself. And I also miss the gold of what anger is teaching me in that moment. So, you know, like I just mentioned, anger is a spectrum. So anger, we have like from the most subtlest range to be like, I'm annoyed or I'm frustrated or irritated, or maybe just like disgruntled or grumpy, to like sacred fucking rage. Like something in me is going to have a full nuclear meltdown, right? We can have like both ends of these like polarities. If you're looking to bring your inner spring energy back into balance, your wood element energy back into balance, there are a lot of things that you can do. So movement is one of the best things. We want to channel that energy. We can journal, we can do self-reflection. And for me personally, I heal best when I'm in community or facilitating or learning in a group setting. So I do have a workshop that you can download, and it's a pre-recorded Zoom session where we had a sacred ceremony about balancing the wood element. And this workshop is about 2.5 hours. We do some yoga, we do some Tai Chi, we do lots of journaling and sharing on that call. So it's really powerful to use at any time during the spring season. So whatever time spring lands for you up until that summer solstice point, this could be really helpful. And also when you feel anger is a present emotion for you. So you don't have to do the workshop in spring, but it could be really helpful for restoring that wood element energy. And then there's everything in between. So what sits in between is going to be jealousy, deeper frustration, annoyance, criticism, even righteousness, like feeling like I'm right, you're wrong. So anger, you know, there's a lot of words that we can use to describe anger. And when I'm working with my coaching clients, we actually journal on all the words that we can think of for just the term anger, and to experience and journal about when have we experienced that emotion in our life before, and what were we reacting to, really? What was the deeper meaning behind that? So, you know, anger is a spectrum. And as I mentioned, we have the yin and the yang responses, or really reactions to it. So if you find yourself in a yang expression, you know, I'm kind of alluding to it here, it's very external. We tend to blame the world, blame other people, and we miss the deeper part of us that's wanting attention or love or having a need met, and really putting the focus on the external world. The flip side of the coin would be someone who internalizes the energy of anger, the yin reaction, which is really taking that anger and directing it to the self, to the ego. So instead of blaming the world, we blame ourselves and become hyper critical, and the inner critic voice comes out to play like no other. It's like really loud and really speaks into a lack of worth, a lack of intelligence, a lack of some type of fundamental tool to move forward. It's like, if only I were smarter enough, then I'd be able to do X, Y, and Z. If only I was able to make more money, then I would be able to do X, Y, and Z. If only I was inherently more worthy, then people would sign up for my program. Like, we turn that energy of anger in towards the self, and then it turns into a harmful inner critic voice. So, you know, these aren't like steadfast rules, but that's just kind of like a general overview that spring is going to urge us to move into action. It's going to say, hey, you just hibernated all winter, you daydreamed about what it is that you wanted. Now that we have longer days and there's more energy, we're going to pick up the momentum and start to get going. And if and when an obstacle shows up on our way and it triggers us into feeling angry, hey, I wasn't expecting this obstacle, I wasn't planning for this obstacle, we will typically tend to either blame ourselves or blame the obstacle, the external, yin or yang. And so, you know, obstacles are really important in spring. They are opportunities and invitations from the universe to level up. And an obstacle you can consider a trigger. Okay, anytime you're emotionally, spiritually, or physically triggered by something, it's an invitation to see what needs healing. Now, one thing with triggers, this is what I teach, I consider there's two different types of triggers. There are healthy triggers, so if I get into a car accident and am elevated heart rate and feeling anxiety or even anger at the driver, like that could be a normal reaction because we just got into a car accident. So our trigger is matching the severity of what's happening. Same thing with those of us who come from a background of abuse. You know, if trauma is resurfacing and we're triggered by the abuse, it's pretty valid. You know, we went through something traumatic, and so in that moment to be in a fear response or an anger response is quite healthy. Then there's what I call shadow triggers. It's when we're triggered by something and our reaction to that trigger doesn't match energetically. We're like way tuned up, where there's so much more energy that we're experiencing that's not really energetically matching what's happening in that present timeline. So, for example, the simple example that I gave with recording the video with IG Reel, you know, I'm finding myself feeling really enraged. Like, I think at one point I like chucked my phone on my couch. Like, I was like 13 again, playing like PlayStation or something, and like chucking my remote and my controller. So it's like, you know, that reaction isn't really matching what's happening. Like, there's something deeper that's there. So if and when you find yourself reacting or overly reacting to stimulus that's not balanced, then it's an opportunity to pause at some point and reflect on the why behind it. What's really deeper down that's triggering that anger? And each time anger surfaces for us, and each time we're in a shadow trigger, it's an opportunity. The universe is presenting us with an initiation, and it's saying, okay, here we're going to send you this experience and let's see what you do with it. So using this example that I'm giving this whole time around the IG Reel, I am triggered. I see that it's a shadow trigger. I see that there's perfectionism underneath. I see that now I should look out for perfectionism in my life. I want to be cognizant and aware that that energy will trigger me into anger, that I will either blame the outside world or be super harsh on myself for things not going as planned. So the next time, because the universe will always provide you with a next time, right? We live through seasons for a reason. So the next time I'm presented with an opportunity to unpack this perfectionism tendency, it's like the universe is serving us an opportunity on a platter, and it's saying, do you want to do something with this that's different than what you've done in the past? We can't do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. So if I'm stuck in my life and I'm feeling really low self-worth and I'm not expanding or blossoming in the way that I want to, then let's approach anger in a new way. Let's approach these shadow triggers in a new way and see what happens. It's very healthy, spiritually healthy, to be curious around our emotions and to learn from them. So for me, you know, once I identified that I'm working through this fear around perfectionism and really seeing that perfectionism triggers the emotion of anger within me, that if I feel like something's not perfect, I either get really hard on myself or blame technology, then because I've identified that I'm going to work on this, the universe is going to co-create with me. It's law of attraction. I'm saying, hey, I realize I need to work on this perfectionist thing. So the universe is going to present me with opportunities that are going to be the trigger. I'm going to be triggered again around feeling like I'm not adequate enough, let's say, and that it needs to be perfect before I get it out into the world. And this is going to keep showing up until I work through it. And work through it in a way that allows me to feel in my worth at the end. So this is what I mean by anger is healthy. We want to feel it. And we want it to blow through so that at the end, we feel in our worthiness. So anger is still going to show up for me. The more I do my spiritual work, anger doesn't go away. It's just my reaction to it changes. My relationship to it shifts. So I was able to really see each time the universe presented me with another situation or opportunity that said, hey, perfectionist, you know, now you're feeling imperfect. How does that feel? You're triggered. You feel inadequate. What do you want to do with it? I would pause before I reacted in my default of, again, blaming the world or being hypercritical of myself. And by taking that step back, I was able to process these initiations and really level up my sense of self-worth. You know, this is that archetypal feeling of like, why am I dealing with this again? Why is this coming back? I thought I worked through this. And the universe is saying, yes, you worked through it in your own way. And here it's coming back again to keep working on it and to keep unpacking and exploring it to grow and evolve. So to sum all this up, our archetypal energy of spring is going to invite us to blossom. And the universe is going to co-create with us. It's going to throw obstacles in our path that will trigger our shadows. And we want to view these shadow triggers as tests, or I like to call them initiations. I don't really like the word test. It feels like I'm in like grade school and I had a really terrible second grade teacher. Who else did? Leave a comment, let me know how your teachers were. But relationship with test taking, I don't really like that term. So I like the term initiation. It's like we're getting initiated to level up and grow and expand. So in spring, the universe is going to initiate you. It's going to send you opportunities to explore how you show up when you're met with an obstacle. So for people who have a more yin constitution of wood, they're going to shut down. They're going to say, of course, I knew it. It's because I don't know what I'm doing and I'm an imposter. Imposter syndrome is pretty big in spring. I don't know enough. Like, of course, this obstacle is here. This is a sign. I should just stop. And then the yang is going to be like, this obstacle, this fucking person in my way, you know, they're the issue, and not doing our own personal work. So we are going to be met with obstacles. What do you want to do with them? How do you want to process them? How do you want to level up your responses to no longer be conditioned, stale reactions to the world and be more conscious, high vibrational, and intentional responses? And lastly, allowing the energy of anger to move through us in a healthy way. So again, emotions are energy in motion. So when we feel anger, we're not trying to get rid of it. We're not trying to like make it bad and go away. What's really healthy is to channel that energy into something. So I teach my clients this all the time: scribble in like a notebook with like a sharp pen and just like scribble around. I remember as a kid, I scribbled all over my sister's blanket because I was mad at her in a fight. Not the best reaction, but the scribbling part was good, just not my sister's blanket. Again, external manifestation of anger. So we can scribble, we can scream into a pillow, we can dance. You know, again, wood energy is very upward, it's in motion, it's action and movement. So one of the best things we can do is to move our bodies, dance, do exercise, go kayaking, go for a walk, do breath work, scribble, scream, breath, mantra. Like there's so many. Have sex, masturbate, I don't know. That's the end of my examples. Move into action, get moving, let the body move that energy. And again, we're not doing it to remove it, we're just letting the energy pass through. So we talked quite a bit on when our inner spring and the energy of our wood element within the body is out of balance, what happens, right? We discussed that quite a lot, but I want to also talk about when that energy is in balance. Like, how do we recognize that there's harmony flowing? Because our inner spring, just like it can bring up some shadow triggers and some spiritual work, there's many gifts of inner spring as well. There's many beautiful fruits to enjoy, so to speak, really beautiful flowers to enjoy. So when our inner spring is in balance, we feel like we have this sense of determination, where whenever we meet an obstacle, we work with the obstacle. We don't make the obstacle the enemy, or the very nature of the obstacle being proof that we're inherently unworthy. The obstacle is used as a tool and a teacher. So when we're in balance with spring, any obstacle is going to teach us something and be a tool and an initiation on our path. In addition to that, we feel really clear on where we're going. And when I say where we're going, I don't mean knowing what the end is going to look like, knowing the destination, just clear that we're going on a journey. So this could mean that I know right now during my phase of inner spring, I feel really clear that I'm working on setting healthy boundaries. And I don't know how that journey is going to look. I don't know what the end result is going to be. I just feel clear that my work right now is to speak my truth and ask for my needs and to own my voice and to set healthy boundaries. So spring energy is very focused and determined. So if I feel clear on what I want, and I feel clear that this is the work that I want to do, or the business that I want to launch, or the book I want to write, whatever it might be, if I feel clear on what that is, then any obstacle that stands in my way is just going to be a tool to help me get to the end. And it's not about the end with wood energy. When we're in balance with our spring, we aren't concerned about the destination. It's really about enjoying the journey and to have that focused willpower to move forward. So it has the gifts of clarity. It has the gifts of resiliency. So being able to pass those initiations and to level up. There's also a sense of really growing and evolving. So wood's energy is moving upwards. Its nature is to move upwards. So it's this evolutionary type of energy. And it's very focused on what the soul is yearning for. So we're just coming out of our inner winter where we were hibernating, reflecting, seeing what we really want and daydreaming of a future. And once we feel clear on what it is that we want, it's setting strong intentions and taking grounded action steps every day, one small step towards the dream, towards the ultimate vision, towards what we're clear that it is that we want. So we can see how we want to bring this energy into balance, because if we hang out in the camp of anger, we won't ever really get much done if we're just sitting with the anger and letting it kind of be misdirected. Healthy wood also teaches us that anger is good, that it's a teacher, that it's showing you something. So we embrace the emotion of anger and we work with it as our teacher during this season. So while spring is in balance, it gives us resiliency, it gives us clarity, it gives us focused willpower, it gives us drive, it puts us into action, and we have a balanced relationship with anger, among much, much more. But this is just an introductory taste into 5-element theory, into spring energy, just to give you a general feel for what this element holds for us, the element of wood and the element of spring. As I mentioned, my name is CARLEENA La Curandera, and I am a spiritual coach and mentor, specifically empowering women to return to cyclical life, to empower their lives and reclaim their authenticity. I am the author of the upcoming book, The AKASHIC Alchemist, a cyclical guide to remembering your soul's ancient wisdom, that will be out in 2023. I work with clients one-on-one through mentorship, and at this moment in time, all of my mentorship slots are full. So if you want to work together and receive the medicine of these teachings, I would love to find space to connect. And one of the best ways that we can do that as of this point in time would be to check out that Inner Alchemy series, where you can learn tools to restore that wood element energy, bring balance into the anger, emotion, and build a healthy relationship with anger as well. I also have a podcast called The Akashic Alchemist, and there is an episode on sacred rage, so you will be able to learn some more tools and support specifically on the concept of anger if you're interested in that. I'm going to link everything down in the description of the video, so go ahead and check that out. And if you enjoyed today's video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. That helps for exposure, getting this video out to people who need it. And it's also just a really sweet way to offer an energetic exchange between you and I as a sweet little thank you for this content, this teachings of 5-element theory and of specifically spring energy. So I hope today's video supported you. Check out my offerings on my website and feel free to send me a message on social media at CARLEENA La Curandera. I would love to get a conversation going and hear with you about how your spring energy is feeling. You know, sometimes we can think that we're the only crazy, angry ones when it's kind of a collective energy that tends to come up around this time. So let me know. I would love to have a conversation. Until next time, sweet soul, peace.